Hey, welcome everybody to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin, and glad to have you aboard tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about Genesis HO scale GP15s as well as the Pflaudler milk cars. We're going to be talking about the Athearn HO versions this evening. So we've got a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover, especially with the Genesis locomotives. So let's start out like we always do. Let's get a few shout outs going out there. We've got Eugene, Anthony, Sid, Jason, Derek Glass is in the house, Ronald, Frederick, Rick, Terry, and Donnie, Jay Cure, and Dale. KCG Railfan is here as well. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And like I said, tonight we are going to be talking about the Athearn GP15s. These have been recently updated from their last appearance last year. We'll talk a little bit more about those guys and some of the schemes that we're offering this time, some really exciting paint schemes to talk about, as well as the milk cars, something that we haven't offered in quite a few years. So whether you're a fan of the 1920s or 1990s into today, we probably have something for you, and we look forward to showing these to you. So one more time, let's see who's joining us tonight. We've got Keegan, Amy, Late Night Model Railroad, Andrew, Bradley. And let's see who else is joining us. Jeff, Abel. We've got Rory in the house, Andrew, and Jeremy, Steve. So a great crowd we've got tonight. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. So let's do what we always do. Let's go ahead and get in that comfortable spot in our cozy workshop chair. Put the hobby knife down and grab the beverage of your choice. Let's get started with Train Tuesday. So like I was saying earlier, we're going to talk about the GP15s. Now, if you've got questions on the Genesis GP15s, try to hang out until we're done with this. I've said it before. When I'm going through these screens, I don't always see your comments. So I will watch for those comments towards the end of this broadcast. But let's get started with one of the more interesting locomotives that we've offered in the last few, it's been about a year now, about 2 years. So as you probably know, by the mid-1990s, CSX, our first paint scheme that we have here for you tonight, they started to adapt yellow ends and frame stripes to some of their diesels to be more visible at grade crossings and to help prevent collisions. This was a simple way of updating a paint scheme without a full repaint. And both the black frame, or sometimes called by rail fans a blue stripe, and blue frame, sometimes called a blue down, are examples are represented in this line from some variety for your fleet. Each road number offered does have different art, so let's look at those in detail real quick. First one that we have here is CSX 1504. This is representative of a locomotive that was working in the mid-1990s. It is a blue stripe repaint, so it's going to have the yellow ends and the frame stripes. And if you look carefully on the cab, you will see CNO sublettering. And as far as details, this will include the whip antenna, a large front plow, and a unique number board font that the other two stablemates do not have. Now, up next is the CSX 1513, another mid-1990s offering. This is also called a blue stripe repaint. It has the yellow ends and a frame stripe. This one, however, has the CSXT sublettering, but it also will include a whip antenna, a large front plow, crooked CSX lettering on the right side. It's one of those subtle details that our developers found in doing their research on those. These are the things that make these types of locomotives so unique. Sometimes when we're doing modern railroading, it seems somewhat generic, but it's not as generic as you may think. So take a look at these CSX locos and you'll see what I mean. Subtle details like the crooked lettering is something that is really interesting to find. Now here's a variation that we talked about earlier, the blue down. This is CSX 1518. And this is, again, 1990s. It's a blue down repaint. So you notice the fuel tank and the trucks are blue, not black. This is going to have the yellow ends and a yellow frame stripe. Like 1504, it's going to have the CSXT sublettering. And as far as details, little bit different. It's going to have the WEP antenna, but this has still got its chassis front rock plow, a carryover from its previous owner. So really interesting for you fans of CSX, especially guys that are modeling the 1990s. This is something that you're probably going to want to add to your collection. Really, really cool selection. Now, we know that Conrail is popular with you guys, and so we had to offer Conrail. Now, believe it or not, Conrail was one of the largest railroads that ordered the largest supply of the GP15s. Conrail ordered 100 of these GP15-1s in 1979. Now, they were intended for mainly secondary and branch line trains. They featured snowplows on both ends for bidirectional use. Signal boxes were also standard equipment, allowing the GP15s to be used for road service when required. Most survived until the end of Conrail in 1999, and they joined the ranks of both Norfolk Southern and CSX, many of them retaining their blue Conrail paint and receiving a patch paint of some type. We're offering these locomotives, 1645 is the first one we have shown here, as a 1996 plus paint scheme. This has got the small Conrail quality logo. By this time in the 1990s, just the standard can opener scheme was updated a little bit with the Conrail quality. This one also features Hyatt bearings, a small EMD plow on both ends, and front ditch lights only. Now here's one you Conrail guys will be excited to see. 1662 is a 1997 plus locomotive. It has the Operation Lifesaver logo. It too has Hyatt bearings, small EMD plow on the front end, but this one's unique in that it's got ditch lights on both the front and the rear. And then last in the Conrail lineup is the 1667. This has a large quality logo. Remember, 1645 had a slightly smaller one. This one has a larger quality logo on it. This one has Timken bearings. It is a small EMD plow on both ends, and this one only has front ditch lights. So we know you Conrail guys, especially you guys that are modeling the 1990s, this is a loco that you had been asking for. And it looks like we've lost our picture. I apologize for that, guys. Let me try to reboot those. Well, it looks like Microsoft has crashed on me here, so hold on a second while we try to get that screen back. And I'm going to start with the first Conrail offering. Okay, so can everybody see 1645? All right. Yes, I see that in the comments. I would like to say something, but we'll move on as far as our software issues. So I apologize for that. Let's get back to it, to the Conrail. Again, briefly, looking at this one here, we've got 1645. Small quality logo. Remember in the 1990s, they had gone away from just having the standard can opener paint scheme. This is the Conrail quality. This is the era I remember rail fanning the most. This one's going to have Hyatt bearings, small EMD plow on both ends, and front ditch lights. $16.62. And Jim says, I can see those. I know Jim is a big Conrail fan, so I want to make sure Jim can see these awesome locomotives are going to be releasing. 1662. This is 1997 on up. This has the Operation Lifesaver on it. Really cool locomotive. Hyatt bearings, small EMD plow. This one is different in the group that it's got ditch lights on both the front and the back. Again, bidirectional use. They were used a lot on branch lines, but they could be used on mainline service if they had to. 1667. This is the last one in the Conrail lineup. This is a 1997 era on up paint scheme. This has the large quality logo. This one, however, has Timken bearings, a small EMD plow on both ends, and front ditch lights only. Now, you Mopac guys, you have been asking for this for quite a while. And I can hear a collective sigh of relief that we've offered the Mopac GP15s, because guess who was the largest order of GP15s? Well, the mid-1970s saw many railroads rebuilding their first-generation GP7s, GP9s. Illinois Central Gulf, there's a good example of that. Recognizing this, EMD seized on it by offering the GP15-1, allowing railroads to purchase a new locomotive that reused components from traded-in GP7s and GP9s, while receiving tax advantages, making the GP15-1 competitively priced compared to rebuilding the old Jeep 7s and Jeep 9s. The Missouri Pacific liked the idea, and the first 20 GP15-1s, road numbers 1555 to 1574, would arrive on the system in June and July of 1976. Mopac used the GP15-1 across its entire system, much like it did the utilitarian GP7. It quickly found a home on its branch lines, local and traveling switch engine, TSE or service yard switching, as also as extra power on mainline trains. The Mopac would ultimately have ultimately had 160 on the roster, with an additional 30 GP15 ACs, accounting for over half of the 372 GP15-1s and varieties built, with Conrail's 100 being a distant second. So these, if you're a Mopac modeler, you need to add these to your fleet. These are 1977 on up, and even though these were new locos, there's some subtle differences, and we'll talk about those now. We're going to start with 1555. There is no front pilot stripe. There is a blue patch with the MP logo on the cab. It has mixed bearings on Blomberg B trucks. So keep that in mind when you look at 1555. Just some subtle differences. When we go to 1562, at first glance, it looks like it's stablemate 1555, but this is a pilot stripe. It also has a blue patch with the MP logo on the cab. Blomberg M trucks, not the B trucks, M trucks. Now next we have, and the last one in this setup is the 1572. This one's really cool. This one's got some neat things about it. Early as delivered paint, no front pilot stripe. Now check carefully on the logo on the cab. It has a C and EI logo on the cab. Blomberg M trucks, all blue handrails. There's no white ends on this one, so a little bit different from the previous two that we've offered. So again, Mopac fans, you've probably been waiting for these for quite a while. Well, you asked for them. Athearn is answering them. Now, before I go on, one thing I want to do mention, and bears repeating, everything that we're talking about tonight, you have until Friday, June 24th to place your pre-orders with your preferred dealer. After that, you can't order anymore. It's just best if you see something that you really like on tonight's program or on our website to pre-order them now, not worry about trying to get them later, because they typically sell fast. And I can tell you, probably the Mopac ones are going to sell extremely fast. Now here's one that I've been excited about personally, and I know a lot of you other Rock Island fans out there have been extremely excited about this one as well. Athearn is extremely pleased to come out with the Rock Island Rail unit number 1106. This is really neat. An old, once familiar paint scheme is now back today in the form of a Class 3 railroad based out of Sumner, Mississippi. Now, they started in 2017. It was a group purchased the rights to use the original colors, and logos of the Rock Island. Operating as the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad, LLC, with the reporting marks of RILX, they recently purchased a former C&W GP15-1 and painted it up in the bright blue and white scheme with a large rock R on the sides. This offering is officially approved by Rock Island Rail. So we've worked with this railroad exclusively in the development of the paint scheme and the markings. Want to thank Rock Island Rail for working with us and making this really cool locomotive. Now the or former C&W 4411 has a few details on this one, a little bit different from how it originally came. As it appears now, it has a relocated bell that's on the frame. It has an M3 horn, a UP-style front plow, Sinclair and CAN-style antennas, and front and rear ditch lights. And again, the artwork that you see here, this is all approved by Rock Island Rail, since they were nice enough to work with Athearn and the team at Athearn to come out with this really cool model. This is one that I think will sell really quickly because a lot of you guys out there, we've been listening to you on our Facebook, on our Instagram, and of course YouTube. A lot of you guys have smaller layouts, whether it be a switching point-to-point layout, and you're looking for something that's a GP7 or not a G9, or maybe you want to model the here and now. This is on a paint scheme that was new in 2021. So if you guys that want a modern switcher that's not a first-generation diesel, here's a great example. So coming up next is we've got some legendary liveries. And I know every time we come out with a legendary liveries, a lot of people get triggered on these. It's a love-hate relationship, and I understand that. For those that do not like the legendary liveries, all I can tell you is they do sell. There are a lot of people out there that model railroads that have been fallen flags for many years, but they would like to model them as they appear when these locomotives were introduced, or for whatever reason. Now, for you guys that don't think you're a fan of the legendary liveries, we're not going to abandon the prototype stuff. The Rock Island Rail is an excellent example of that, as well as our Mopac, CSX, and Conrail. So I don't think we've given up on prototype. We are, though, kind of delving a little bit deeper into some of these could-have-beens. And keep in mind that even though we say these are legendary liveries, these locomotives could have happened. They are based on plausible events that our researchers have found while digging for other paint schemes. So here's our first one. It's a Southern Pacific number 3900. This is our fictional write-up on this, so this isn't real. But Southern Pacific embarked on an extensive rebuild program for its Jeeps in the 1980s to extend their service lives. But what if they had gone shopping to EMD? With the moniker of baby tunnel motors, these units would prove to be well suited for the SP's tunnel-prone operating divisions. So again, could it have happened? Absolutely. One decision, one hand stroke of a letter, it did not happen. But we're offering number 3900 and 3912. So you Southern Pacific fans, if you wanted an opportunity to get GP15, here's a great example for that. So some of the features of the Southern Pacific 3900 and 3912, they're going to have a cab-mounted gyro light. Now that only flashes if you get the Tsunami 2 sound version. It's also going to have nose-mounted UDE lights. Again, they flash if you have the Tsunami 2 version. Operating class lights, cab air conditioner, large snowplow, a Nathan P3 horn on a bracket, whip antenna, and Blomberg M trucks. So Southern Pacific fans, no, they never really happened. But if they did, they probably would have looked like this. And pretty cool. You know, another thing, too, that you may have not thought of, but a lot of guys that have their own short lines that they've dreamed up, you could easily take one of the legendary liveries and change the name, patch out the name and make it your own. There are short lines that have mimicked full Class 1 railroads. New England Southern is one of them. They mimic a Union Pacific paint scheme on their switcher. So it's also a good starting point for you guys that want to have your own railroad. Now this is classy, and you Rio Grande fans, you've got one of the classiest paint schemes to look at. Here's another legendary livery. Rio Grande never had these. But let's look at an alternate history once again. Running out of their miles on secondary assignments, the Denver Rio Grande's GP7s and 9s toiled in relative obscurity until their retirement. Until the alternate timeline, the Rio Grande ordered EMD's GP15Ts in order to replace the aging Jeeps and increase the efficiency of these assignments. The turbocharged units being better suited to Grande's mountainous territory. They will feature the typical Denver Rio Grande features such as the M3 horn and the nose-mounted gyro light. Now again, those gyro lights work if you get the Tsunami 2 version. So we're offering number 5970 and 5977. So some of the items that are going to have on the Rio Grande units, both 5970 and 5977, are going to have operating class lights. That's brand new. Nose-mounted gyro light if you have Tsunami 2, Nathan M3 horn, Sinclair radio antenna, and Blomberg M trucks. Now, going back into the realm of reality, these are based on actual units, and these I don't believe we've ever offered these before. Apalachicola Northern number 720 is shown here. Early in the 1990s, the Apalachicola Northern was a 96-mile short line running between sorry, there's a lot of words here. Chattahoochee and Port St. Joe, Florida. They rostered 3 unique GP15-Ts, which they ordered from EMD in 1983. They featured a non-dynamic hood, turbocharged prime mover, nose-mounted gyro light, and canvas sunshades. Delivered originally in a bright yellow paint scheme, by the 1990s they received this vibrant dark blue paint job. Fortunately, by 2010-2011, the GP15Ts were purchased by the Genesee and Wyoming group. 2 examples here, 720 and 722, were sent for use on their Bayline Railroad in Alabama. Kind of a short line. And we had a lot of comments on these on Facebook. A lot of you guys that are fans of this railroad, you really wanted to see the yellow ones. That's possible. We'll probably do the as delivered yellow versions maybe in a future release. But for this time, we're going to do the solid blue paint scheme. And it's a really, really eye-catching paint scheme. Now 722 and 720, these are based on early 1990s units. They have a nose-mounted gyro light. Again, they only operate if you got the Tsunami 2. Operating class lights, 5-chime horn, roof-mounted AC, and a unique body configuration. Now, some of the things that we haven't really talked about, and if you watch the new announcements video at the beginning of the month, we've updated these. Now, we've offered the GP15s before, but we've added new features, and these are features that you guys have been asking for, and we've been seeing it on our comments, on our social media platforms, as well as the Athearn product suggestion email. And you guys have been asking for lit number boards and classification lights. And guess what? With the DCC version, you'll have the operating class lights. With the DC and the DCC, you're going to have operating number boards now. That's huge for you guys that are doing operations. Really happy to have these new features in there. For you guys that are wondering what's a good size layout for these to operate on, in HO scale, I mean, there's a small locomotive, little 4-axle Jeep. So they're going to work on a minimum radius of 18. They look the best on a radius of 22, however, but they will go all the way down to an 18-inch radius. So there we've got the GP15s. And these are, I'm really excited about these because, as you know, I'm into the small-time operations. And, you know, GP7s, GP9s are really cool, but not everybody is still using those for anywhere from 1980s to modern day branch line or switching operations. This is a great little locomotive to add to your fleet. As you can see, we've got some great class 1s that we're offering in this roundup, as well as a modern day railroad based on a fallen flag. So really cool stuff. Let's see if there's any questions on the GP15s before we move on to our next one. Yes, it is. It is a really sharp unit. I mean, the GP15s that we're releasing this time, I'm just really happy with. So late night model railroading asks, are these all new tooling or do they use the same shells, etc., as the previous Genesis GP15 run? I really dig those CSXs. Yeah, they're going to look really cool. So these are based on the ones that we've offered before, but they've been updated. And that's one of the things that Athearn has been doing since its rebranding. Our developers have been hard at work, not just reissuing models that we've done in the past and not only giving you new road numbers and maybe new road names, but they are actively updating the tooling as well. So whereas the last release of the GP15s didn't have those features, the new ones will. And that's something that you're going to see not in just Genesis, but in all of the lines. Paul said, I just joined the chat. More GP15s. Well, Paul, we had a lot of comments on that. A lot of you guys have been asking for more UP. We did offer UP in the previous run. We realized with some of you folks, that's not the era that you want. Rest assured, eventually in the future, we'll offer some GP15s with these features in the UP line. UP is one of those lines that's got a very solid background of fans. All right, let's go on to the milk cars. We're going to go back to the 1920s now. And we're going to talk about the Pflaudler milk cars. These are 40-foot cars. Time frame on these is about 1920s. And a little bit of background about the company. In 1920s, the Pflaudler Company and General American Car Company manufactured hundreds of wood-sheathed insulated milk cars. They were designed as bulk milk carriers. The cars were built around two 6,000-gallon glass-lined tanks and a brine cooling system designed to keep the milk at a constant 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Riding on passenger car trucks, these unique cars were often painted Pullman green to match the passenger cars of that era. The special purpose Pflaudler cars hauled bulk milk shipments well into the 1950s. So right up until the 1950s, a lot of railroads, a lot of Class 1s still had milk service in their lineup. We've got a couple here that we're offering this time, and let's go through them here briefly. We've got the Chicago and Northwestern. Here's an actual Pflaudler car. I'll zoom in on this. This is a really cool 1920s era, the latest evolution of the first car. This particular one operating for the B&O. Classy logo too. That's really a cool car. Reed Ice Cream Corporation. Now, if you're a modeler of Canada, especially in the Northeast, railroads, like the Rutland, the Boston to Maine Central, they all had designated milk car service. And of course, there's dozens and dozens of dairy farms throughout the United States, not just the Northeast. And so these cars, like I said, these were commonplace with trains right up until about the 1950s. That's about the time the trucking industry started to make some inroads on the freight. Here's a cool car, Alderney Dairy Company. You got to love the billboard style advertising of this era. And then the Merkel Dairy Company. So again, these are something we haven't offered in quite a while. Some of the features that we're packing into these Athearn HO scale cars, they're going to have the separately applied brake wheel. They're going to have a molded plastic underframe with separately applied brake cylinder. But you're also going to have the screw-mounted express-style trucks. Those express-style trucks because they were run with passenger trains. Metal wheel sets, of course. They're going to be properly weighted to NMRA standards. They're all going to have body-mounted McHenry couplers. And of course, the thing that really sets these cars apart, highly detailed injection molded body, along with that really nicely done, painted and printed for the most realistic decoration. What's the minimum radius these cars can operate on? 18 inches. So if you get a layout that's got 18 inches or more for radius, you're all set. You're ready to go. So let's see if there's any other questions on the milk cars. And then I'm going to answer a few questions. I do have a few announcements to make in the Athearn world of news. But let's see what we've got for comments real quick. I think the Illinois Railway Museum has a milk car that's wearing an Illinois Central gray. It's been a number of years since I've been up there, but I believe you are right. It's been almost 20 years since the last time I visited there, but that's really cool. Terry's got a good idea for you guys modeling. Being nice for a maintenance away or an abandoned siding somewhere. Yeah, that would be cool. You know, we all have stories of watching our favorite railroads and seeing what's in the yard, in the back part of the yard. And it's not unheard of for us that were rail fanning in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond to find something, some kind of relic from the past. So that's a great idea. Let's see, any other questions on the milk cars? Eric is saying Hershey's had some. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Any other questions? All right. Now, before I get to more questions, just general questions on Athearn, a couple of programming notes that I want to share with you tonight. I know we're running a little bit longer, that technical difficulty kind of put us behind. I apologize for that. But a couple of things I want to talk to you about. I'm going to be live again here coming up soon in a couple of different events. Coming up this weekend, starting Friday and going into Saturday, Athearn's going to be at RC Fest. Now, if you're not familiar with RC Fest is the Horizon Hobby, our parent company. This is their open house. It's where you can come and visit all of us from Horizon, and you'll get a chance to not only see all the different things that we produce, but you'll actually get a chance to actively use it. So if you've ever imagined that you wanted to be a fighter pilot of World War II and fly a model version of a P-51 Mustang, or maybe even a model of an F-86 Saberjet from the Korean era, you can definitely do that at RC Fest. Maybe more racing is your type of thing. We're going to have all kinds of different RC cars set up for different racing styles, everything from off-road to different types of course style racing. Or if you're like me, you know, I got into Jeeps because of rail fanning. And there's a whole community of folks out there that like to do four-wheel drive trails. Well, that has also come into the RC world. And so you can take your Bronco, your Wrangler, your Scout, your Chevy, your Dodge, whatever it may be, whatever your favorite brand of car is, and you can take it on an actual off-road course. And the best thing is your insurance premiums don't go up. But not only that, Athearn is going to be there, and we're going to have, as you can see, we've got a neat little switching layout. We're going to have a layout there. You can actually come on by, operate the layout, just like you would at your friend's operating session. And by operating the layout, you get put into a drawing for the chance to win a brand new Athearn Genesis locomotive. So stop by. We're going to have a booth there. We're going to have some product there. We'd love to talk with you too. Now, if you want more details on RC Fest, I'm going to go ahead and show you our website for that. You can go to rcfest.com locomotiveshells.com. Just look that up on your Google. But I can also take you to our website here. And here is the website that you can go to for RC Fest. So yeah, I know there's a car there and there's an airplane, but Athearn's going to be there too. We're going to have a pretty good sized booth, the same booth that we take to our shows. We're going to have some product, and don't miss out. There's something else that you're going to want to see. Not only do we have RC Fest with all these cool models, but right next door is one of the Midwest's finest railroad museums. That's the Monticello Railroad Museum. So what better way to spend part of your weekend than to come and see some actual restored, beautiful equipment that's running. You can hitch a ride on one of these locomotives. Stop by, see the guys at Athearn. I'll be there. Mark's going to be there. And then take a break from trains for a little bit. See what else is out there too. I know a lot of you guys may be into other hobbies as well. This is a great chance to see all that. So definitely check that out. That's coming up this weekend. That's going to be Friday the 10th and Saturday the 11th. One more thing, a programming note that I want to share with you guys tonight. And we are going to be live with Train World this Thursday. This is going to be this Thursday. I'll be talking with Ken Jr. We're going to be talking about everything Athearn, everything that's in this month, as well as things that we've talked about in previous months, and also what's going to be available for sale through Train World. So that's coming up Thursday night. It's going to be 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 5:00 Central. And myself and Tony Cook from White River, we're going to be talking about all kinds of cool stuff. So be sure to tune in for that. Watch our social media platform for exact times. But again, Thursday, that is coming right up. You're going to want to be a part of that. Okay, so with that being said, let's see what kind of questions you have, and then I'm going to let you get back to it. Let's see. I just saw a good comment here. John says he's heading to the New England Proto Meet this weekend. That's right. That's coming up this weekend. If you have not been to that, it is something that you need to see. Prototype meets are a lot of fun. And if you're somebody that likes to scratch build or super detail your equipment, you really need to go to a prototype meet. Now, the New England one is this weekend. Don't forget, too, the end of July, Athearn's going to be at the St. Louis RPM meet. That's another great meet of prototype modelers. Here's a good question. Would Athearn ever consider making a yard slug and HO scale? I can tell you honestly right now, our developers have a pretty full plate because not only are we developing new models, but we are updating current models like the GP15 and the U50 that we talked about last week. But slugs in the future, it is a possibility. I don't have any firm commitments from development on that just yet, though. Let's see. Frederick is saying thank you tonight. He got his 3 Heritage UP units and the Montana Rail Link. He got 2 units. So hopefully you got the Essential Workers locomotive. That is a great looking locomotive. How long did the milk cars last? The ones that we're showing when they were in their prime, 1920s to 1950s. Check your railroad to see when it really was. But pretty much the end of that was the 1950s. What other new comments do we have here? Would you guys ever consider selling just locomotive shells? I know there's been some other manufacturers in the past that have offered that service. Just based on the way our locomotives are produced, that's probably something that we will not be doing. That doesn't mean we'll never do it, but at least at this time, it's not something that we've looked at, but it's a good question. what's the delivery delay with the P-42's Amtrak Heritage locomotives? So you're talking about the Amtrak Heritage locomotives that we announced last August into September. Biggest thing that we're having trouble with right now is we are incurring a lot of shipping delays. As you know, the 70M-2s as well as the SD70 Aces, they were late. We've had to push some ETAs back a little bit, but if you go to our Athearn website, we try to keep those ETAs as close to the actual ETA as possible. But just keep in mind right now, we are seeing unprecedented shipping delays on items like that. All right. Well, with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I want to thank you all for joining me for Train Tuesday. Check out those GP15s. These are great. And while you're at it, check out the U50s. We've updated that as well. These are going to be great models to add to your fleet. I know there's a lot of guys out there that were looking for Conrail CSX, especially the Mopac guys. And for you guys that want to do something modern but not 6-axle, check out the Rock Island Rail. That's a great little locomotive. Also, check out the HO Scale Athearn milk cars. You have until Friday, June 24th to place your pre-orders with your dealer. So go ahead and get those pre-orders in. Now, Frederick already said all the SD78s is sold out in a week. Yeah, that's a good example of why you want to pre-order anything that you see here that we talk about tonight. Pre-order is easier. You don't have to worry about hunting and going online and spending hours looking for that locomotive. Just pre-order it with your preferred dealer, and when they come in, you'll be all set to go, ready to run that locomotive. So there you have it. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Don't forget, I will be with Ken Jr. and Tony this Thursday, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern, for a special Train World Live. We're going to talk everything Athearn, and I'd love to have you guys join us. Until after that, if you get a chance, swing by Monticello, Illinois this weekend. Come check Athearn out, say hi to myself and Mark. And until next Train Tuesday, everybody out there, have a great evening. Do some great modeling. Be kind to others. And above all, high greens. Take care, everyone.